Policeman injured by gunman in shootout. Jamaica's police force is now 14,000 strong and exclusive on Keith Clarke trial, while Manchester City takes lead in Premier League. This is Undiluted News. Mikey Bones reporting. 8 persons have been confirmed dead after a bus believed to be carrying migrant farm workers crashed on a state highway in north-central Florida yesterday. 45 persons have also been injured according to emergency officials. In an article from CNN, the Florida Highway Patrol reported that approximately 53 farm workers were aboard the bus when it collided with a 2001 Ford Ranger at approximately 6:35 in the morning. The bus then exited the highway and ran through a fence before overturning. The driver of the other vehicle have now been arrested on DUI manslaughter charges, according to Florida Highway Patrol. According to FHP, the driver, Brian McLean Howard, was traveling east in a pickup truck on State Road 40 when he drove close to the center line and sideswiped the school bus traveling west on the same road, causing the accident. In Jamaica, National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang said that the Jamaica Constabulary Force has now achieved its full complement of police personnel. Dr. Chang said this is the first time in history of the force that the 14,000 establishment has been met. He said the focus will now turn to consolidating the various roles and responsibilities to ensure optimal performance. The government has been ramping up its recruit drive in the force to fill vacancies which was created with the mass exodus of hundreds of members of the JCF over the last several years. During his presentation Tuesday afternoon, Dr. Chung also outlined the government's plan to professionalize the police force and to implement measures to improve public safety following a spike in murders and shootings. The 17-year-old boy who was arrested in connection with the fatal stabbing of his classmate at a Catholic college in Manchester on Monday has now been charged. The teenager was charged yesterday afternoon with the offenses of murder and wounding with intent, and he's booked to appear in court on June 4th. This was disclosed by Deputy Superintendent Kerry Duncan, head of the Manchester Police, who said officers are still in the process of interviewing potential witnesses. 20-year-old Akila White died from stab wounds she received during a dispute at the institution, which is located in Williamsville in Manchester. Another 17-year-old victim also received stab wounds when he went to her assistance. And we now have a one-time exclusive on the trial of the 3 soldiers who, while searching for Dodos Cook, went to the wrong house and killed the homeowner. Dr. Claudel Clarke, the widow of the accountant Keith Clarke, who was killed in 2010 by members of the security forces, gave a chilling report how she witnessed 3 soldiers firing shots at her husband. Dr. Clarke, the prosecution's first witness in the murder trial, took the stands about 10:39 yesterday morning. Recalling the horrifying night on May 26 of 2010, Dr. Clarke, who was an education officer, said she returned home with her younger daughter around 8 o'clock. She said they ate, showered, and went to bed. About an hour later, her husband arrived home. Dr. Clarke said she made him a sandwich and soon after her husband fell asleep. Moments after, she said she heard the sound of a helicopter or a plane. She said she heard the sound getting closer. She looked through her window. That was when she saw the helicopter or plane flying over the area. She said she awoke her husband and brought it to his attention, but they went right back to bed. While in bed, Dr. Clarke said she heard a bang on the roof of her house and what sounded like the sawing of the grill. She again alerted her husband. The widow said at that time the sounds got louder. Noting that they began panicking, Dr. Clarke said she and her husband went to their second daughter's bedroom. Responding to the prosecution's whether she had heard any other sound when she went to her daughter's room, Dr. Clarke said the sounds were coming from all over her house. In an attempt to get to the basement, she told the court that she, her husband, and daughter huddled together and went downstairs to the living room area. Dr. Clarke said she was panicking and could not find the correct key to open the door to the basement. She said they returned to the master bedroom. At that point, she said her husband climbed atop the closet and instructed her and her daughter to hide in the bathroom located inside the master bedroom, which they did. At that point, she began calling her neighbor while her daughter dialed 119. Dr. Clarke said when the sound got closer, she suggested to her daughter that they should go outside, identify themselves, and beg for mercy. But she said just as she and her daughter came out of the bathroom, the master bedroom door opened and 3 men dressed in army gear entered. The widow said before she could finish identifying herself and the members of the household, she was asked, "Where him there?" She said at that point her husband was coming from off the closet. Dr. Clarke added that his feet were on the window and his back was turned. Responding to the prosecutor, she said her husband had nothing in his hands. Dr. Clarke said that was when two of the men in the army gear opened gunfire, hitting her husband. Responding to the prosecutor on whether the men identified or declared themselves, Dr. Clarke said no. She said they only asked where the gunman them there. Dr. Clarke said after her husband was shot, the men clad in army gear asked where the rest of the gunman them there. Lance Corporal Greg Tingling, Odell Buckley, and Private Arnold Henry are on trial for Mr. Clarke's murder. And this is the case where the security forces searching for Dodos Coke made a mistake, went to the wrong house, terrorized an entire family, and executed an innocent man. A man was killed during an alleged dispute involving relatives including his sisters. The incident occurred in Hartford, Westmoreland on Sunday night. He has been identified as 38-year-old Alwyn Beckford, otherwise called Sheng, a laborer from the community. And according to Detective Superintendent of Police Dean Watson, who confirmed the incident, Beckford was hit with a stone during a confrontation. Reports from the police indicate that Beckford was at home with his fiancée when an argument developed between him and one of his sisters. And during the argument, it is alleged that the three family members, including his sisters, began hurling stones at Beckford, one of which reportedly hit him on the left side of his head, causing a wound that bled profusely. Beckford later collapsed and was rushed to the Sablamar Public General Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. A policeman was injured during a shootout with armed gunmen on a motorcycle Monday morning in Kingston. The Corporate Communications Unit confirmed that the shootout happened at the corner of Waltham and Bay Farm Road after 5 a.m. According to the CCU, the police signaled two men riding on a motorcycle to stop. One of the men then opened fire on the police, who returned fire, hitting one of the men, who was later arrested and hospitalized. A policeman was also injured during the shootout. He was treated at hospital and has now been released. Onto sports. English Premier League. Manchester has overtaken Arsenal at the top of the Premier League chart and now leads by 2 points after a close victory over Tottenham Hotspurs. Arsenal fans were starting to dream about having a first Premier League title in 20 years in their grasp, but Erling Haaland burst that bubble with a goal of brilliant simplicity. Kevin De Bruyne perfectly timed his run from Bernardo Silva's pass, laid the ball on a plate for the prolific Norwegian to score from point-blank range. Tottenham supporters who hate their rivals Arsenal was quite happy their team was losing and started to celebrate that their team was losing just to deny Arsenal the crown. They even began an anti-Arsenal chant. Both teams have one game to play, and only a win for Arsenal and a loss for City can change City from becoming the first side to win 4 consecutive English top-flight titles. And it all comes down to just one match. The winner will be decided there. And don't forget that the best news and sports takes place on this station. If you ever miss the news on this radio station, please go to YouTube, type in Jamerican Undiluted News, listen, like, share, and subscribe to keep it going. That's news and sports on your favorite radio. My name is Mikey Bones. I gone.